Good evening. It's the third day of India's mega vaccine drive, and so far it's already been over 61 lakh doses today. Remember, the record was this Monday when India crossed over 88 lakhs. We can see there how the numbers have been changing. Yesterday fell, but again today already at about 7 o'clock we're over 61 lakhs at 7:30. So let's see what those numbers finally add up to. Remember, the asking rate is about 97 lakhs for India's entire adult population by the end of the year. So different states setting new records. Maharashtra has now exceeded its own record of vaccinations. They've also started free vaccines for the 18 to 44 age group. And now the big change is that in many states, really, as well in Mumbai, that we can see that Maharashtra private hospitals are now lagging in vaccine domination. So there we can see also how individual states are performing. As from Madhya Pradesh, they've gone, they had fallen yesterday but up again today. Uttar Pradesh also pretty steady run rate there of vaccines, and that's great because it's India's most populous state. And Maharashtra setting a new record. Delhi also setting a new record today with over 1 lakh cases.
Now the trend is reversing. Mumbai is seeing more and more people visiting government-run vaccination centres. 20-year-old Tejasri Midbaukar tried for a month but with no luck until today.
Already thought that I'll go in the government one only.
Why?
Yeah. That because it's costly, it's quite costly now. So I thought it should be preferable to. Yeah.
Sagar Kadam works in a salon. He was trying for a month to get the jab but could not succeed. Now it was an urgent requirement as his salon management insisted that employees should take the dose.
अभी चाहिए इसके लिए अभी ले अभी तो चालू हो गया ना सलून तो इसके लिए अपन क्लियर है तो कस्टमर भी क्लियर है मैं क्लियर है इसके लिए वैक्सीन लेना.
On Monday, Maharashtra government opened vaccinations to the 30 to 44 age group, but from Tuesday to all above 18 years old. But from the data, it looks like people are rushing to the government centres than private ones. In the last 2 days, 75% of the vaccines were administered at the government-run centres. Until now in June, private centres accounted for 75% of vaccination in the city. PMC has a stock of over 1 lakh doses and state government says it has a stock of over 15 lakh doses.
We have done the highest number of vaccination yesterday. We have crossed 5,50,000 yesterday. It was the highest in the state since we started our vaccination. And the capacity is actually 10 lakhs per day. But as and when we receive the vaccine, we will be administering the vaccine.
After the sluggish performance in the last 1 month, now public vaccination centres are seeing a big jump, and with BMC and state government confident of getting regular supplies of vaccine, they hope that the daily vaccination numbers will be even higher. In Mumbai with camera person Praveen Ji Rohit, this is Purva Chitnas for NDTV.
And now what's been defined as a variant of concern is Delta Plus. So we've seen now that it's spread to many more states. There's still around 40 cases, so that's not extremely high. The numbers are low, but the government has warned that we cannot take this complacently at all. The warnings have been issued to the states. Remember, the Delta Plus variant is currently seen as more infectious, infecting lungs more, and also more resistant to monoclonal antibodies. So this really is the big focus for India's health community and states at the moment.
After the Delta variant which drove India's devastating second wave, now a new extremely worrying variant, Delta Plus. India has a quarter of the world's reported cases of around 200, and over half of India's over 40 cases are being reported in Maharashtra alone. The numbers are still relatively small, but after the high tally of the second wave, this time it's code red. Jalgaon district has 7 cases and they are from a rural area. So far, officials say all cases are in one cluster of houses. All were found in samples taken last month.
ज्या कोविड पॉझिटिव्ह रुग्णांचे हे सॅम्पल्स होते त्यांची आपण डिटेल माहिती घेतली, त्यांचा अभ्यास केला तर लक्षात आलं की हे 7ही जण मे महिन्यामध्ये पॉझिटिव्ह आले होते. हे एकाच क्लस्टर मधले म्हणजे एकाच भौगोलिक एरिया मधले होते.
The Delta Plus variant is a huge worry at this stage because the Delta Plus or AY1 is characterized by acquisition of K417N mutation. The K417N mutation is found in beta variant associated with immune escape. It is highly transmissible and it may show resistance to current treatment protocols. Out of 45,000 samples, 40 cases of Delta variant have been found in Maharashtra, Kerala and Madhya Pradesh. The United States, United Kingdom, Portugal, Switzerland, Japan, Poland, Russia, China and India are reporting Delta Plus cases. Adding to the delay in identifying new corona variants is the absence of genome sequencing labs. For the first time, Mumbai is now setting one up at the civic body-run Kasturba Hospital.
But in order to bridge the gap between the swab and the reporting, we have decided to set up a genome sequencing lab here in Mumbai in one of our hospital, which is named as Kasturba Hospital, and that lab should be operational from 2 weeks from now.
In Kerala, 3 Delta Plus cases have been identified. Interestingly, 2 of them are middle-aged working women in Palakkad and 1 4-year-old in Pathanamthitta. And neither of the 3 have any travel history.
One of the women in Palakkad is part of a cluster where around 8 in a family tested positive and around 3 at her workplace as well. The state is looking at sending more samples for genome sequencing. Meanwhile, all 3 panchayats are under strict restrictions with high test positivity rates.
എന്ന് ഭയപ്പെടേണ്ടതില്ല എന്നാണ് പഠനങ്ങൾ പറയുന്നത്. സംസ്ഥാനത്ത് നിലവിൽ 3 രോഗികളിൽ മാത്രമാണ് ഇത് കണ്ടിട്ടുള്ളത്. അവരിലുണ്ടായ രോഗബാധ
In Madhya Pradesh, worryingly, one patient who contracted the Delta Plus variant died. Though here, the importance of vaccinations is key.
मध्य प्रदेश में हमने जो इसकी जांच एनसीडीसी से कराई, इन 5 पेशेंट में से 4 वैक्सीनेटेड थे और उनकी तबीयत एकदम ठीक है. उज्जैन में एक व्यक्ति की जरूर इस वेरिएंट की जो वैक्सीनेटेड नहीं थे उनकी मृत्यु हुई है.
Mutations help viruses become more transmissible, more virulent, or both. The role of the Delta Plus variant in immune escape, disease severity, and transmissibility is under surveillance. And with over 40 cases in India, it's being actively tracked and traced. And India is on alert. With Sneha Merikoshi and Anurag Dwari, Saurabh Gupta, NDTV.
And let's just look at the latest numbers. And here's why we need to be extra careful. Well, India has reported over 50,000, nearly 51,000 cases. But remember, this is up by 19% in the last 24 hours. So we need to be really careful. Corona hasn't gone away. Deaths also are up by 16.3%. The tests in the last 24 hours are up 14.2%, and the daily positivity rate is 2.67%. So that's relatively static, but the main thing is that we need to keep those cases and that positivity rate down as well. And here's another good reason to get vaccinated. Indigo, India's largest airline by market share, has now got a discount, a Vax Fair, for all fully vaccinated people. They'll get 10% off if they've got either one or both the COVID-19 vaccine shots. So there you are, another great reason to get vaccinated. Well, let's move now to the other big political news, and that of course is a key meeting with the Prime Minister and senior Jammu and Kashmir leaders tomorrow. From the government side, the Prime Minister, the Home Minister and the NSA, and at least 4 former Jammu and Kashmir Chief Ministers will be there tomorrow. Vishnu has more on the implications of this meet. And remember, Vishnu, it's also the first time these leaders, most of them who were under house arrest or detained when Article 370 was abrogated and the state was split into union territories. This is the first time they're meeting the Prime Minister after that.
That's right. It is a huge meeting and actually quite unexpected. Just a couple of days back, none of these political parties had any inkling that something like this would happen. And therefore, the big question is that what persuaded the centre to actually go and do it? Was there some sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudge by the United States, which is often spoken about the importance of restoring the situation in Jammu and Kashmir? They congratulated India, for example, when 4G was restored over there. Their Secretary of Defence told us, in fact, that between democratic partners, there needs to be discussion on all issues, even if it's human rights. But be that as it may, the big question is what's going to happen tomorrow. Now, we do know 14 political leaders across political parties will be attending tomorrow. As far as our sources in the government are concerned, they are telling us They're not saying very much on what the exact agenda is, though there is an indicator that they'll talk about the delimitation exercise. But on the larger political issues, on the restoration of the states and on Article 370 itself, that is certainly something which the state leaders would like to bring up. But whether that gets addressed or not, we don't know. There's nothing to suggest that the centre will not be willing to talk about that. But at the moment, no clear indicator of whether something productive, larger will actually take place tomorrow.
Right, Vishnu, I think really you're right that the meeting is symbolic in the sense that it's happening. It's the first beginning of political outreach in a sense after those events of 2 years ago. Thanks so much for that update. I know you'll be tracking closely tomorrow. But the other big headline is, well, these are the three big economic fugitives, Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi and Mehul Choksi. And now the Enforcement Directorate has said that they recovered about 80% of what these three between them owe banks. And they've actually given now, through seized assets value, nearly 9,400 crores back to banks. That's 40%, they say, of the overall debt that these three owe to banks. So that's really a great move there for banks which are already stressed.
The Enforcement Directorate has claimed that it has transferred assets of fugitives Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi and Mehul Choksi worth 9,371 crore to the public sector banks. The Enforcement Directorate, taking cognizance of CBI's affair in bank fraud cases, initiated money laundering probe against these three fugitives. In its PMLA probe, the agency attached assets of these three fugitives worth 18,170 crore, which according to the agency is 80% of the total bank loss. The agency sources say that all these three fugitives defrauded public sector banks to the tune of 22,585 crore. Subsequently, now the agency has transferred assets worth 9,371 crore of these three fugitives to the public sector banks. Of this 18,000 crore worth assets seized, over 10,000 crore belong to Vijay Mallya alone and the remaining 8,000 crore belong to both Nirav Modi and also Mehul Choksi. Of this 10,000 crore worth assets, 6,600 crore worth shares belonging to Vijay Mallya in United Breweries Limited, also part of the attachment by the Enforcement Directorate. In Nirav Modi and Mehul Choksi case, the agency has attached gems and other diamonds and also other properties including wind farm mill which have been transferred to the public sector banks. With the agency transferring all these assets to the public sector banks, now the public sector banks can sell these properties to realize the outstanding dues. The agency sources also maintain that the extradition proceedings against these three fugitives are currently underway.
So fantastic news there of the recovery of some of the money owed to the banks, the thousands of crores. Well, let's move across to another shocking story, a story which has really shocked an entire state, a state which prides itself on women's empowerment and education, that's Kerala. But the story of the death of a 24-year-old girl, apparently because of dowry deaths, apparently because of torture in claims of dowry, is something which has led the Chief Minister to react, announcing new helplines and special police to actually help fight any complaints of dowry. But he's also tweeted saying that the practice of pompous marriages where status really matters must end.
In a shocking incident from Kerala, 24-year-old Vismaya, an Ayurveda medical student, was found dead at her husband's home in Kerala's Kollam. Her body was found hanging in the bathroom on Monday. Among her earlier exchanges with a relative, according to sources, these battered, bruised pictures of hers beaten up allegedly by her husband. Vismaya's family has alleged dowry harassment and physical abuse. Kiran Kumar, her 30-year-old husband, who works in the motor vehicles department, has been arrested and suspended from his government job.
എൻ്റെ സഹോദരിയുടെ മരണത്തിൽ അത് മരണമല്ല, അതൊരു കൊലപാതകം തന്നെയാണ്. കാരണമെന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ നിരന്തര സ്ത്രീധന പീഡനം അനുഭവിച്ചുകൊണ്ടാണ് ഒരുപാട് പ്രശ്നങ്ങളും കാര്യങ്ങളും ഇടയ്ക്ക് ഉണ്ടായിട്ടുണ്ട്.
Vismaya and Kiran were married last June. This January, Vismaya was allegedly beaten up by her own husband at her own parents' home. Her father never allowed her to return to her husband's house after that until March 17th, when Kiran picked her up directly from her college, took her back to his home just 3 days before the official compromise talks were to be held between the two families after the police complained. Since then, Vismaya's mother was her only point of contact at her home, even as her husband, Kiran Kumar, kept demanding more dowry, alleges family.
പ്രതിയെ പിടിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടോ? പക്ഷേ ഇതിലെ ബാക്കി ആൾക്കാരെ എന്തെങ്കിലും റിലേറ്റീവ്സോ ഫ്രണ്ട്സോ ആരെങ്കിലും അതിൽ ഡയറക്റ്റായി ഇൻഡയറക്റ്റായിട്ട് റോൾ എന്തെങ്കിലും ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അന്തോ ഞങ്ങൾ കണ്ടുപിടിച്ചിട്ടേ അവരുടെ പേരിൽ നിയമപരമായിട്ട് നടപടി കർശനമായിട്ട് നടപടി എടുക്കാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് ഞാൻ നിർദ്ദേശം കൊടുത്തിട്ടുണ്ട്.
Kerala's shame as justice is awaited. With camera person SP Babu, Sneha Koshi for NDTV.
An absolutely heart-wrenching story there. A young woman died because of that horrendous, brutal tradition of dowry, which has of course been completely illegal, but yet we see in practice it's often so different. And moving now to Uttar Pradesh, where another shocker, and this really is about the harassment that young women face there every day. This footage shows that in Uttar Pradesh's Mathura, 3 young men actually barge into the house and throw this 17-year-old woman, a girl, this young girl off her own house. She falls 2 floors. She's currently in hospital. The teenager's father has named the 3 men in a first information report who all live close to her. They actually had the guts to just storm into her home and throw her 2 floors down.
Shocking visuals on CCTV of a 17-year-old girl flung from her second-floor home in UP's Mathura on Monday night. Allegedly by 3 men, who the girl's family say were harassing her for a year and lived less than 2 kilometers from the girl's home. The teen has survived the horrific assault, but her spinal cord is fractured. Doctors are conducting further tests to check for the extent of damage.
आरोपी 2 युवकों को तत्काल ही गिरफ्तार कर लिया गया है. अन्य साक्ष्य संकलन करते हुए इस प्रकरण में आरोपियों के खिलाफ कठोर विधिक कार्रवाई सुनिश्चित की जाएगी.
The father of the girl has told the police that the men first called him over the phone, abused him, then later barged into his house. When the family protested, 2 men picked up the girl and flung her from the balcony. 2 of the accused are from Bihar, while the third person is from Mathura. Reports say the men in their early 20s used to work in a local company. It is not clear if the family approached the police in the past. The girl has now been shifted to a bigger hospital in neighbouring Agra. With Saurabh Gautam in Mathura and Rajesh Gupta, this is Alok Pandey, NDTV.
Well, praying for India there. A quick look at some other news. Kamal Hassan, you are a legend, wrote Sandhya Vaidyanathan, an artist-illustrator who managed to rope in the megastar for a Zoom call with a fan who's battling cancer. Take a look.
I'm going through some sort of, I'm having a fight.
I know.
And thank you. I'm sure to jump back for these little ones and for my wife and my family.
You must. The fact that you're born is that you won a battle with 40 million of your brothers.
Correct.
Or sisters.
And it's a tragedy, but you won.
Engage age to tell.
Yeah, you're destined to win.
Yeah.
So keep trying.
I will.
Well, hopefully he will recover and win that battle. But let's just look at what's some great news and really a validation of what's been very tough months of journalism during a pandemic and the deadly second wave in India. According to a Reuters Institute of Journalism survey at the University of Oxford, NDTV was the #1 choice for television and online audiences. You can take a look at that survey on the Reuters Institute of Journalism website. But it really is fantastic news for all the entire team and for all you viewers who validate our journalism every day by watching. Thank you all so very much.